What's going on YouTube? Ditty here, and I am excited to be bringing you yet another Pokemon trading card game online deck analysis and example matches with that deck. Now, one of my role models, Puka from the Top Cut, has been hired by the Pokemon Company, and of course he is also still commentating like he was last weekend at the the World Championships. So because of that, he is no longer making YouTube videos, and I am starting a new series on this channel, which is Bad Deck Monday, in honor of his channel and the success that he found there. I think that Bad Deck Monday offers a lot of variety, so I'm going to be bringing that back here. And if you are unfamiliar with what Bad Deck Monday entails, I'll throw a link to some of the examples from his channel down below in the description. But basically, we take an idea, build a deck around it, and try it out on Mondays, and that's what I'm doing today. Usually these can be fun decks, but they are not competitively viable. So today, I'm bringing you that Metagross deck that I was talking about in my previous video. What I thought might have been at one time viable is no longer viable at this time, but with some changes, I think that this deck might be able to succeed. I just actually changed it right before I started recording. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the deck, and then I'll throw some matches into this video as well so we can see how it fares. Basically, the deck is built around this Stage 2 Metagross that was just released with the Ancient Origins set that just came out. It's a Stage 2 with 150 HP, so it's got some relative bulk to it. It's gonna not get OHKO'd by a lot of things currently, but we'll see if we can make it work. It has some things going for it. First of all, you're going to be using the Iron Cannon attack for 2 metal and 1 double colorless energy. You're going to be able to hit for 80 damage, and by discarding both of those metal energies that you have attached to this Metagross, you're able to hit for an additional 80 damage. So right there, you're going to be doing 160 damage, which gets us pretty close to knocking out most Pokemon EX in the format. Of course, we're going to be also adding muscle bands onto those Metagross so that we can hit for 180 damage, getting those one-hit knockouts on the majority of Pokemon EX other than Mega Pokemon. So right there, that's actually pretty good. Now, we do have this problem of discarding those metal energies, so what we're going to be using is the Bronzong. We're running a 3-3 Bronzong line, using the Metal Links to recycle those metal energies from our discard pile and to put them back onto our benched Pokemon. Now, this actually synergizes really well with Metagross because Metagross has the ability Magnetic Warp, which allows you once during your turn to switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon, forcing your opponent to do the same. So basically, this is a reusable escape rope, and because the Bronzong only allows us to attach to our benched Pokemon, ideally, we'd like to get 2 of these Metagross into play and then to attach with the Metal Links to our benched, and then each turn to switch with that Magnetic Warp ability, to keep using the Iron Cannon attack to attack. And when you are not using that Iron Cannon attack, because it does discard those energies, you can also use one of the other attackers we have in this deck. So we're running 1 copy of the Heatran. I think this is a really nice card. Again, it's got 130 HP, but it's a basic. Has the Steel Drop ability, which for 3 energies, or 1 metal and 1 double colorless, is able to hit for 40 or 80 if there's a stadium in play, which typically there is in the current format. Everybody's running stadiums like crazy, so you're going to be hitting for 80 damage pretty easily there. And then Steam Blast for 130, but also you discard an energy attached to this. So again, this works pretty well with those Bronzongs that we're running in this deck. So a very versatile attacker, I think, and since it's a basic, it is a little more flexible than the time it takes to get these Metagross out. And I should say that before I made this video, I did actually add a second Metang. I was only running 1 before, a 2-run 2-line, but I switched that to a 2-2-2 because very frequently I was previously unable to draw onto a single Metang. They were both prized, for example, so that can be frustrating if it prevents you from getting your Metagross out, so I did add a second one of those. Now, I also am running a couple of support Pokemon. You're probably familiar with the Shaman EX with that setup ability, which allows you to draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Running one of those, as well as the Jirachi EX, again with the Stellar Guidance, allows you to grab onto a supporter for the turn when you lay it down. The Hypno Strike you're probably not going to be using, but we are running the Steel Shelter Stadium card here, so that does prevent our Pokemon from being affected by special conditions like the sleep from that Hypno Strike attack. I'm also running one of the Aegis/EX. Now, I tried to build this deck as a budget deck, because it doesn't rely on any of the more expensive Pokemon EX cards. However, I am running a Shaman EX and a Jirachi EX. However, if you play the Pokemon trading card game in real life, you probably already have those cards, as they are staples of most common decks nowadays. So I'm assuming that you have those. The Aegis/EX is not particularly expensive in real life, and it is pretty useful in this deck, I would say, because it has the Mighty Shield ability, which prevents any damage from attacks from Pokemon that have any special energy attached to them, and it also has the Slash Blast attack, which does 20 more damage for each metal energy attached to it, 40 plus. So pretty good. I think that with this, the deck might be a little more functional. Previously, I had the new Registeel that was released with Ancient Origins as well, because I was trying to really keep a budget, but it just was not working at all. So I'm trying out Aegislash to see if it works any better. So in order to get those metal energies more quickly into our discard pile to recycle them with the Metal Links, we're running 2 copies of the Battle Compressor. You're probably familiar with that card by this time. I'm running 1 Bicycle, 1 Escape Rope, and 1 Switch. Even though we have the Magnetic Warp ability, it can be very useful at times to use the Magnetic Warp ability to force your opponent to switch something out, and then pull out a switch to bring something else out in its stead, or to use that Escape Rope once again. So I'm running 2 copies of the Evo Soda just to accelerate getting those Matang and Metagrosses out, as well as the Bronzongs. I'm running 2 copies of the Rare Candy as well. Like I said, it's been challenging to draw onto the Matang that we need. So I'm running 2 copies of that as well. Hopefully we can just bypass it. Run Professor's Letter, 2 Startling Megaphones. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Pokemon with abilities. So we're quite weak to the Garbodors that are currently still in the format, which will be gone in another week and a half. However, as of right now, I'm trying to make this deck as viable as possible. So I want to use that Startling Megaphone to get rid of that option, as rotation has not taken effect yet. I should mention as well that this deck is currently 100% able to bypass the restrictions of that rotation when it does occur. Now, I'm running 2 copies of the Ultra Ball, very useful card, 2 VS Seeker, 2 Lysander, 1 Pokemon Center Lady, 1 Pokemon Fan Club, very useful card in this deck, 2 Professor Birch's Observations, as the N is no longer in the format as of that rotation, 2 Professor Sycamores, 1 Teammates. I think that this card is going to see a lot more play in the near future, as it basically replaces the Computer Search that is going to be gone as well. 2 Wally, a very useful card in this deck, allowing you to evolve even on turn 1. The 2 Steel Shelters that I mentioned, and then I'm running the 3 Muscle Bands, 4 Double Colorless, and then 8 Metal Energies for rounding out the deck at 60 cards. So I'm going to go ahead and find some matches here on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online with this budget Metagross deck to see if we can pull out some victories here online. We'll see if we can get the V. As it looks like my opponent is running quite a variety of Pokemon types in his deck. Be interested to see what Raw Phoenix is running. Now, in your starting hand, you really always want to see a Beldum, potentially a Bronzong, and then a Battle Compressor, so as well as a supporter, that'd be the ideal hand. Looks like I do have the Jirachi EX, a Beldum, and a Bronzor, so that is pretty much stellar. I also have a supporter, the Birch's Observations there, so in my first turn, I'll go ahead, lay the Beldum, and then also probably lay down the Bronzor, maybe attach a Muscle Band, and then use that Birch's Observations. I could use the Jirachi EX instead, however, there isn't a supporter I would rather have in my hand at this time. Looks like my opponent is actually running a Lugia EX and a Mewtwo EX, so probably, since I saw the Darkness Energy as well, we'll see an Yveltal EX as well. Looks like he's running just the straight-up powerful Pokemon that have the ability to do damage based on the number of energies attached to both active Pokemon. So this is going to be quite a challenge for us, as the Metagross does require 4 energies attached to it in order to make use of its Iron Cannon attack. So I'll have to be very careful and use that Magnetic Warp ability to my advantage to shuffle around which of my opponent's Pokemon are active at any given time. Now, I have an Ultra Ball, but I don't particularly want to discard a Matang or a Metagross, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the Birch's Observations, leave the Jirachi in my deck for later. Looks like I do have a double colorless, though I don't want to attach to the Beldum, because then I would be able to get knocked out by the Arrow Ball in my opponent's turn. So what I will do is go ahead, use the Professor's Letter here, and discard both of those energies with the Ultra Ball. Draw onto another Beldum, which I'll then lay on my bench and attach to that with the double colorless and end my turn there. What I could have done instead, and this probably would have been smarter, instead of grabbing the Beldum, I should have actually grabbed onto the Jirachi with that Ultra Ball, just so that I could ensure I have a supporter to use next turn. Looks like my opponent will be able to hit me for 60 damage, knocking out my Beldum with that Arrow Ball attack, as he actually does Lysander out the Beldum, so it's quite unfortunate for us. Looks like we might just be overrun completely by my opponent's Lugia EX. Not what I like to see. However, I do have a Bronzong in my hand, so I will be able to Metal Links at least 1 energy onto that Beldum, and then go ahead and use the Battle Compressor to put a few more of those energies in my discard pile, and then just end my turn. So, not exactly the best matchup for this deck. It's perfectly fine, though. If I'm able to top deck a Sycamore, then I can draw into 7 more cards, and hopefully then get the victory. Looks like my opponent is just going to attach yet another energy, but he does use another Lysander and knock out my other Beldum, so my strategy is completely null and void at this time, and unfortunately that is the game. So congrats to my opponent, 20, 40, 60, 80, yet one more energy and he's able to knock me out. So as soon as we see that, I'll just go ahead and concede. Plays the Skyfield, and there's the energy. Good game to my opponent. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead, end that match, and then immediately grab yet another here on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. Hopefully, we can find a desirable matchup that allows us the appropriate amount of time to get one or two of those Metagross going. Now, I'm able to go first this time. This can be quite a plus if I'm able to use a Wally on my first turn to immediately get one of my evolutions going. The Beldum is sitting only at 60 HP, so it's pretty easy for Pokemon EX to knock it out right away, whereas the Metang does have 90, so what I'd really like to do is be able to actually get this thing going. This deck has proved very challenging to get going, so I would like to draw into an extra card. Thank you very much. Do have the observations there, so I will just go ahead and attach that energy, use the Birch's observations, draw onto 4 cards, lay the Steel Shelter, and end my turn. My opponent actually running the Munna, so interesting. I have never seen that run except for when it evolves. I think its evolution does have an ability that is useful, but I can't recall off the top of my head what it is. Attaching an energy to that, a psychic energy, is going to allow him to use the see-through and look at my hand, and kudos to him. There's nothing there that is noteworthy at all, so I'll just go ahead and use the spinning attack here. I've got 3 energies in play, but it wasn't able to draw onto anything useful whatsoever. Now my opponent will be able to attack doing the double headbutt, potentially hitting up to 40 damage this turn, which is perfectly fine. If he doesn't have a muscle band, he won't be able to knock me out this turn, as I actually resist that as well, as he gets 2 tails. So this actually might end up working out for us if I'm able to get anything going at all, but I just draw onto yet another energy, and if my opponent doesn't play another Pokemon, then I'm just going to knock it out with my Beldum, and this will be a completely null and void match because it's just over in 3 turns. Really wondering what my opponent's strategy is, as he's drawing onto Steel energies and not Psychic. He's got an awful lot of cards in his hand, but again, he was unable to do anything, so unfortunately my opponent just lost, and I wasn't able to get my strategy going as well, so that was a victory for us here on Bad Deck Monday, but it does not count towards actually showing off the deck, what it's capable of, and how the strategy works. So I'm going to go ahead and find a third match on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online here, and hopefully we can find something that gives us the time that we need to get the strategy going so we can show it off. Looks like I'm going first again, and I wasn't able to draw into a basic Pokemon. This time I do have the Beldum in my hand, however, so definite plus there, as I am going to lay that down. Got the Battle Compressor in my hand. That's what I like to see. Basically, if you have the Battle Compressor and a supporter card like the Birch's Observations, that's really what you want. So go ahead, lay the Muscle Band down. I've got a double colorless. That's the only type that I like to be attaching when my turns are going on, since I like to be using the Metal Links in my other turns. Discard those 3 energies, use the Birch's Observations, draw into 7 cards, fortunately, and I did draw into the Heat Train, which is excellent. My opponent wishing me good luck, and I definitely want to wish them the same. That's actually pretty nice. So, I have the Ultra Ball, but I don't want to discard any of my cards currently. I will be able to use that Rare Candy next turn, which would be excellent. So, actually, I'm going to discard the Metang. And I think that the VS Seeker as well, so I can use that Sycamore next turn. I'll just go ahead and grab onto a Bronzong, or a Bronzor, excuse me. Get that into play so I can hopefully evolve later. Now, my opponent, all they would need in order to knock out my Beldum would be a Battle Compressor and a double colorless energy. So, we see the Battle Compressor. Gonna be putting those Lampents into their discard pile. Do they have the double colorless in their hand, however? Or they could use a Dimension Valley, an Escape Rope, or a Switch, and 1 Psychic Energy to pull it out. The Acrobike might get them the card that they need, though. Potentially along the discard yet another Night March card. Nope, unfortunately they did not do that, or fortunately for us. Ultra Ball coming out. Likely going to be drawing onto a Jirachi or that Shayminiax to draw more cards, I'd imagine. Or just grabbing a Joltik. Okay, putting that on the bench. And does have the Dimension Valley. Do they have the... They have 1 energy there, and they attach the Mew EX. So they were not able to withdraw this Joltik, as actually they did grab onto the Sycamore, so now unfortunately they definitely will be able to switch out and knock this out probably. Attaching the Muscle Band there, they have the VS Seeker. It's strange to be using a VS Seeker because I could, you know, end them since that's not out of the format yet, but that is my opponent's turn, so unfortunately I might not be able to get everything going that I want to, but sorry for the long turn. Okay, I don't mind. I have another Battle Compressor here, so I've got a few things I can discard. I'm actually just going to go ahead and discard another 3 energies, so I've got 6 metal energies out of 8 in my discard pile. Don't want to be drawing onto those as they are less useful than others, and I'll go ahead and attach yet another double colors onto that Heatran. Now, I have the Escape Rope, so what I can do is use the Escape Rope to get my Metagross back to the bench, bring out my Bronzong, and use the Metal Link's ability to get one of those metal energies onto it, but unfortunately what I will be doing instead is I can use this Steel Drop to do 100 damage to this Mewix, which is not enough to KO it, but I do not want my Metagross to get knocked out because its Metal Link's ability is more important. Steel Shelter will prevent this thing from attacking potentially next turn, which is nice. I'll use the Metal Link's ability to grab one of these energies, attach to the... I'm actually going to attach to the Metagross, and then use the Magnetic Warp ability, again, to switch my Pokemon around. I'm just actually going to put the Shimmy EX out. I don't mind if my opponent draws onto 2 prize cards. I desperately need to make sure I get enough energy onto these Pokemon so I can start attacking with them. And because my opponent, I got rid of the Dimension Valley, my opponent would need either a double colorless onto this Joltik to use its attack, Night March, or he'll need some sort of switching card to get attacking with the Mew EX, as he can only attach an energy to one type, and the Mew EX does not have enough energy on it to attack, so I'm actually in a pretty good position right now. I've gotten a Metagross out, a Heatran out, and both had double colorless on them, and I've got a Bronzong, which is going to be able to begin using its ability Metal Link. So my opponent was able to knock out my Shimmy EX using the Night March, as he has 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. He's got 6 Pokemon, and his discard pile is doing 120 damage with that Night March. So I need to KO this Metagross, or excuse me, that Mew EX as well. I'm gonna go ahead and bring out the Metagross, and then I'm definitely gonna use the teammates this turn. Want to use the Metal Link's ability though, and this is actually a problem. I guess I'm forced to use the Metal Links onto the Heatran. I should have brought out the Heatran so I could use the Metagross's Iron Cannon attack this turn and have him bring out that Mew EX, but unfortunately that is not the case. Gonna go ahead and use the teammates, grab onto a Metagross since I have the Rare Candy in my hand this turn, which is excellent. And then I guess I'll grab onto... I could grab onto the Startling Megaphone. That might be my best move here. Could grab onto an Ultra Ball. And since I'm using my Sporter, I can't use a Lysander this turn. Could grab onto a Lysander to use next turn, though. In fact, I think I'm going to do that instead, so... grab onto the Lysander, use the Rare Candy, bring out another Metagross, so I can actually use my Magnetic Warp ability twice per turn now, which is pretty nice. I'm going to attach a double colorless to that as well. Use the Magnetic Warp ability, bring out the Heatran, going to be hitting for 100 damage onto whatever my opponent chooses to send out, and we'll see. I had predicted this second Joltik to come out. Yep. And what we will do instead is use the Steel Drop attack to hit for 80 damage, knocking that out. And my Heatran, of course, will be knocked out this turn because it's hitting for probably 160, 180 damage this turn. It was 120 before, but this Battle Compressor will allow him to get up to 3 more Night March Pokemon into his discard pile, so... or her discard pile, 20, 40, 60, 80... 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120... see what else is in there now. 140, they just grabbed another Joltik, looks like, or no. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. So, going to be hitting for 140 damage, which is enough to KO my Heatran, but will not be able to knock out any of my Metagrosses without a Muscle Band, so. Fortunately, my opponent does have 2 active Joltiks, so in a very tough spot right now. But I did draw another energy, so that's great. I'll use the Professor's Letter. Fortunately, there aren't any other energies for me to draw onto, but I can use the Metal Link's ability to draw onto yet another metal energy. There, I'll attach this metal energy to the Metagross. That is my active. And then I'll use the Magnetic Warp ability to bring out my other Metagross, which is fully powered up, ready to attack, as my opponent is probably going to bring out the Jirachi, I guess. But I'll use the Lysander here and bring another one of the Joltix out, and then use the Iron Cannon attack. I don't need to discard because it only has 30 HP. And that right there is enough to knock out one of my opponent's Joltix. Now, I should take a look at how many of what Nightmare Pokemon are here. He's got only 2 of the Pumpkaboos there, 2 of the Joltix, and all 4 of the Lampents. So this would be the 3rd Joltik. There's the 4th Joltik. Unfortunate, because I don't have enough attackers to actually keep going. What I should have drawn onto before was actually the Aegis/EX. I don't know if that's in my deck currently or if it's prized, but if I had had the Aegis/EX, then I would be completely able to circumvent damage from these Joltix because they are relying on double colorless to attack. So very unfortunate there. If I'd actually been thinking about it, that is definitely what I should have done. So I'll go ahead and use the Fan Club now, and as we can see here, the Aegis/EX is actually prized. So much to my chagrin, I am unable to actually make use of its awesome ability to probably win this match if I had had it. However, I do have a fully powered up Metagross here, and that will allow me to get something going, I hope. Use the Magnetic Warp ability to bring it out so I can attack something, but my opponent probably, again, going to be bringing out that Jirachi EX or something else. Yep, the Jirachi EX, as I would need to discard my energies to KO it. However, I'm just going to let it sit at 10 HP, hope my opponent does not have a switching card, and then I can survive with my Metagross an additional turn. Unfortunately, they did have the energy, so they're just able to retreat with a Jirachi EX and then knock out my Metagross. So this Night March deck just proving to be too powerful for the Iron Cannon Metagross deck to overcome. So what I will do is just bring out that Bronzor. Doesn't particularly matter what I use because there's nothing that I can do right now to pull out the victory. However, I will be able to power up one of these Bronzongs, excuse me, and then I'll search with the Stellar Guidance for the Sycamore to draw onto some additional cards. Potentially a switching card would allow me to at least knock this out, get us one step closer to winning, although it is unfortunately not going to happen in this match. So, just waiting for that Joltik to knock out my Bronzong, and that will be the end of this match. But I was able to get the strategy going, so at least you were able to see it in action. Unfortunately, this is Bad Deck Monday, and this is a bad deck, so thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Feel free to hit that like, subscribe button. Question of the day today is, are there any evolution-type decks that you'd like to see me run in the near future in a video? Any other Bad Deck Monday ideas that you have for us? Let me know with a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.